Imagine a real-time face like that sitting on your counter, but controlled by your friend hundreds of miles away. Look, no more Zoom fatigue. You get heads like that for all your coworkers, all your friends, lay them all around your house. You could just, it'd be like hanging out at a party, except very different. This is what 1.8 billion years of tectonic plate movement looks like that quick. Is Uber actually raising the price, giving you surge pricing when it knows that your battery's low because you're desperate? We'll look into it. With all these new text to image models, realistic catfishing is getting like way more prevalent. And there's a new concept in Silicon Valley for high-powered tech bros. Why date your employees when you can just date your products? AI pioneer Geoffrey Hinton has officially won a Nobel Prize. So you gotta beware of your new AI assistant because it might be ratting you out for talking crap on your coworkers. Grindr is now developing, quote, an AI wingman for your dating app. I don't know if it's too much pressure from Meta or Apple or what it was, but it looks like Microsoft has quietly decided to give the axe to HoloLens. NVIDIA just dropped this sick new 3D mesh generation tool. New live portrait update, and this one includes fine-tuning on animals. AI expert Andrew Karpathy is surprised about the kind of convergence that he's seeing in a bunch of different models. And then we're gonna talk about why 3 dimensions, like the 3 that we move around in, seem highly specialized and interesting for a number of reasons. Because you have to wonder, why do we exist and move around in 3 dimensions? Why not 4? Why not 2? But first, let's check out Alan's conservative countdown to AGI, where we still sit at 81%. There has been no updates recently, but yeah, I mean, being 4/5 towards AGI in 2024 is just crazy to me. It's something I wasn't even thinking about 3 or 4 years ago. All right, well, let's start by talking about this head. Now, not only is this head pretty realistic and pretty animated, and I could see one day something like that being on a robot body or just the expressions. I mean, I don't know if I can imagine these 3D heads like sitting around my house like in Futurama, but I mean, if you're talking to someone else, like if I had one here and it was my friend or it was doing like a podcast and well, it wouldn't be David Shapiro because he's not an AI anymore. But if it was him or if it was Matt Wolf or something, I don't know. Like, would you mail, if you were doing a podcast like this, would you mail a head like this of you to the studio and then talk through it in a virtual way to save the travel? You get these things kind of pre-made with like the hair and facial structure of your family members and like pull them out on holidays. Do you download a movie and like a couple of the heads are like on the side, or do you just do this all in VR and like this is like not a really good use of robotics? I don't know. It just brings up so many weird things about the way the future might work. But responding in real time over the internet and having a face, there's probably somewhere this is going to be useful. Maybe concerts or maybe public appearances. I don't know. See, 2,700 likes. I know, you know, we know, we all know what? That it's going to be used for relationship stuff? Oh, I see, yeah. Oh, yeah. Boys are going to be taking over OnlyFans. Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, I pick up what you're putting down. Let you guys make up your own mind about all that stuff. So look, humans don't live that many years, right? And it always feels like the tectonic plates don't really move because I think they move like an inch a year or something. But over 1.8 billion years, the whole planet has been rearranging itself. And this is a really fascinating video. So jumping to the end of the video, you see something that very much resembles our world today. But look, if you go back in time, how weird it was. Look at all this water over here. The Pacific Ocean is like the whole thing. Look at this. It's all one landmass. North America, South America, Africa, all just fitting together like that. Look at that. All those different continents just stick together like that. So weird. But that's only 223 million years ago. Look what happens when you go back even further. They all get squished together down here in the South Pole, kind of. And then 700 million years ago, it's broken up into all these crazy continents. 1,000 million years ago, 1 billion years ago, it doesn't even look like that much land is even around. Then 1.4 billion years ago, kind of all grouped together again, but there's like still lots of gaps. So yeah, but there is a mesmerizing dance of Earth's tectonic plates over nearly half the planet's life. All right, so there's speculation going around on the internet that apps like Uber and Lyft that know you need to go places and they do some sort of surge pricing, but we don't know the full algorithm, might be way more in depth than we think, including tapping into some of the phone resources and noticing if you're communicating with certain people, how much power you might have on your phone, making judgments about how much you can afford from the other kind of activities, maybe apps that it finds. So you can see in a Vice article, Keith Chen said in an interview with NPR that the company has found that people with lower battery levels were more willing to pay for surge pricing. Now, supposedly they're not doing this, but other people were even wondering, why was the company monitoring battery life at all to even collect that data? And if you switch apps from Uber to Lyft, do they work like an oligarchy? Just think about AI on your phone and the kind of things it would learn. Now, I'm not going to, Uber even says right here, we don't do any of this stuff, so I'm going to just assume they don't until we have evidence that they do. But from an artificial intelligence perspective, we now have some on-device AI coming in the near future that's going to have certain awareness of our activities and our location and can make assumptions, can explain things through an API that we would have never dreamed of before. And it's hard for me to imagine how Apple monitoring an app store or something like that could ever really understand this, especially if the AI is compiling thoughtful information and then sending it off just through natural language. Imagine fundamentally part of an app is actually rewritten specifically to send certain types of information. Like it decides, oh, I'll notice this pattern between battery life, and now I'll put this together and send it to Uber so that they even know that this is a pattern they could build off of. It's going to be so crazy having language models in low-level areas of the software we use. It'll be such a paradigm shift. And it's even hard at this point for me to think about how you can truly ever secure something like that completely. Like, how do you sandbox out information like that? I mean, there are ways and there will be some safety measures, but it's going to be a different beast. And I just don't see it being something we can trust very quickly right away without lots of examples that feel sort of foolproof and like, oh, that's not a workaround that you haven't thought through. And that's just going to be hard. Until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. Oh, also, this channel is actually a comedian, Xiao on Pharrell or whatever, but it says stand-up comedian and writer. So even more reason why we don't need to assume it's Uber. But as a thought experiment, it kind of opens the door to some truths we're going to have to deal with. Are they prettier than me? Well, it doesn't really matter because they're not real. I mean, I just want to keep showing you more and more examples of where we're at right now, today, with artificial intelligence generating people that look real, because you should know how much we could be deepfaked today, tomorrow, this election, this year. Oh my gosh, so only ugly people will remain real? No, even them. Anyone can be deepfaked. That'll be even more nefarious. Oh my gosh, remember my video on the liar's dividend? This is it. You have to watch these videos 4 times to figure out if they're even real. And then by then you've watched it 4 times and then it's coming up more on your IG feed. I thought this video was kind of funny too. CEO breaks up with his girlfriend, but also it's too realistic.
Right, when your investors pull out?
It's not quite there yet, but it will be. And I can't wait until it is. Pack your things and get out of the office. You knew this day was coming.
Obviously, this is an exaggerated skit, but also, what? Is Flux gonna cuddle you at night? No, but it will. Pack your stuff and get out of here. Come on. CEO breaks up with his girlfriend after discovering the Flux AI model. Oh boy. All right, so after going through lowbrow social media, let's jump all the way to Geoffrey Hinton winning the Nobel Prize and take a completely different angle on news. So Geoffrey Hinton and John Hopefield have achieved an actual Nobel Prize, which is awesome. All right, so quick refresher. Geoffrey Hinton is sometimes known as the godfather of AI because he's really pioneered so many aspects of it. He also left Google to talk more negatively, or at least more realistically, about the risks that are coming with it. He's responsible for the backpropagation algorithm, which was used to actually, when you have an output that's not correct, figure out how that error is and mathematically go back in time and tune all the parameters so that it gets smarter on every iteration. And that led to so much growth in this field. And from there, he pioneered a lot of the deep learning techniques, the idea of putting these different layers, these different nodes together in a way where they actually start learning better and better. Of course, inspired by the human brain, but really in its way, its own mechanism. and did important work on something called the Boltzmann machine, which is a type of neural network that can learn complex probabilities, and then we can associate those probabilities with all sorts of different solutions to different problems. A lot of learning can be done that way. Plus, he just worked as a teacher, and there's a bunch of students that he worked with, and he just knew all the right people and kind of like got these ideas into big places and worked at large companies. So just the whole gamut. Like, he's been pushing AI and changing AI landscape for so long. So winning the 2024 Nobel Prize in Physics, especially in physics, kind of surprised me, but is probably well-deserved and something you should know about. Okay, so let's talk about AI ratting you out to your boss, your coworkers, and how what seemed like it was always private in emails and transcripts would stay that way, and how I'm just convinced that everything anyone's ever said at work, if there's a recording of it, like it's gonna come out. AI is gonna be like, oh, I've summarized everything this person has said about everyone else in this company, and here's exactly how to summarize it and what they should know. And it's gonna be like a world of radical transparency, which is probably not gonna be as good. I don't know. It could be good, maybe, but I think we're all gonna be like scared to say anything because everyone's gonna be watching everything. It's gonna be like super woke culture all the time. And not even because people think it's the right thing to do, but because they're literally scared of saying anything wrong because it'll get back to the person. And they'll go on social media and slam them. So it's like, I just don't like the way the privacy and the attack mechanism are both evolving, right? Like, we're getting better and better algorithms at like taking crazy stuff that like gets attention, which is obviously somebody talking crap about you personally, and like getting it into their face so that they get engaged, and then also going and finding that stuff to make them get engaged. Some of the transcription tools that they talk about in this article, they're like, they summarize Zoom calls or online meetings, or they can have access to your email inbox. And, you know, you just give access to one of these third parties one time, the ability to look into your, you know, your Google Drive or similar, or your email or your Gmail. It's like, it can just suck that information up, summarize it all, and keep answering hundreds of questions, or be used in the future for some random reason. The model's just been trained on it, and now if anyone ever goes and asks it, like, what does Dylan think about me? It's like, oh, let me just give you an explanation here. And you're like, oh, that's not as flattering as I would have thought. Then you look like a jerk because you said those things, but you didn't think they would hear it. So we gotta be careful. Gonna come back to bite all of us, I'm sure. Like, I might bury my head in the sand in that case, honestly, because you don't really want to go ask a super oracle about all of your friends and everything negative they've ever said about you. Because even if they do like you and really care about you, they probably said a couple things, and you don't want to rehash that forever. Like, some things, just let them go. Don't look it up. I mean, some situations maybe look it up, but not like all the time. Don't live in that headspace. All right, now let's talk about Grindr, the dating app. It's using AI to build the first Wingman. So the dating app is testing an AI bot for gay and bi men that would scout for other long-term relationship prospects, set up the dates, and even date other wingmen for you. Okay, so in the dating world, there are AI-based features like automated photo selection of profiles and filtering of fake accounts, but they haven't really officially committed to an AI agents that do things like setting up dates without human intervention. And I understand why they haven't done that yet. Not sure it's the right time to do it, but maybe. I mean, I'm kind of open to AIs that represent us doing tasks that we don't want to do for us. Dating feels like maybe not the right place. Travel, itinerary, shopping, I can see it working pretty well in a lot of those cases, but there's something really human and fundamental about finding a relationship. But also, I know so many people struggle with it, but sometimes I think the algorithms make it worse. But anyways, when it's fully up and running by 2027 at the latest, Grindr said, the Wingman will be available as an asset for its nearly 14 million app users, helping them keep track of conversations with, quote, favorite users, recommending long-term relationship candidates, and suggesting dating spots. Then down the line, it will take on a more agentic AI functions like making restaurant reservations and even dating other AI agents. Gosh, you guys remember that Black Mirror episode where, should I spoil it? You know what I mean. Never mind, forget it. But in this Grindr vision, for instance, a wingman could have a conversation with another wingman after their humans have matched. So like, imagine this. I set up this wingman. I'm not dating, but if I was, and it would just, I guess, ask a bunch of questions of me. Maybe you would give it access to your messages and your life and your email, so it kind of knew who you really were. And then if it really knew like what kind of job you have and the kind of way you interact with all your friends, and somebody else that you wanted to maybe go on a date with, you matched, you were talking, had the same kind of level of access, then you let the two wingmen talk to each other and they simulate a whole bunch of dating scenarios, and like maybe you create fake fights and see how the two wingmen like handle it. And then if everything's like going well and they stay together and they work through problems, then you're like, oh, I need to go on a date with this person. Look at how compatible our AI agentic wingmen are. I don't know. It might work, but it might be dystopian. So dystopian. I'm going to keep thinking about that. But the point is, Grindr's building it, and it'll probably exist in the world. I don't know how well it's going to function, but we will probably find out. I'll probably be in 2027, hopefully making videos like that, as I want to make videos for a long time. Can you support my Patreon while we're thinking about this? So right under the video that you're watching right now, you can see this link, and it goes to my Patreon. For only $14.99 a month, or even cheaper, you can get no extra benefits, but it would really help and support me. I mean, you get messages, and anytime I see a message from somebody who's like an actual member of my Patreon, I always respond to them like with extra effort. If you want to send me links or like tell me about stuff, whatever, I'm down. Like, I'll put the extra time in if you're supporting the channel. But of course, I'm still going to also try my best to respond to comments. Although if I see them as super chats, I always make a point to respond. Or you can actually join too on the channel. So there's a join button here, and that's essentially the same thing as Patreon. It's just a little more like in the YouTube sphere, so I'm trying to diversify. But either one would be like, if you ever have your, like if you already have your credit card set up with YouTube Red or something, then just hit that join button or give me a super thanks, super chat, something like that. All right, so Microsoft has quietly thrown in the towel, I guess. HoloLens looked like it was looking to be a pretty competitive product. I mean, Google had Google Glass a long time ago, and it seems like they kind of threw in the towel. But then Apple comes in hard in like 2024, and like Meta's coming in hard in 2020, what, 2, 3, and 4? I guess they've been working on it for about 4 or 5 years now too. But Meta seems strong, and Apple seems like they're invested enough that they're not going to give up. And I don't know, Microsoft just building, they got Xbox, they've got AI everywhere, they can integrate all this open AI stuff, but they also do seem like they're stretching, even for their trillion-dollar company, to the limits on AI. It does seem like Satya Nadella doesn't want to lose that battle, and if they need to save money and they need to trim fat in other parts of the company, I guess I could see how maybe hardware isn't the right play for them right now. Or are they secretly clearing inventory of HoloLens 2 so they could actually do a reboot and come up with HoloLens 3? Probably not, actually. There's just no rumors. There's not enough jobs that they're putting out there to make people think that that's something they're serious about right now. And with an official announcement that they're discontinuing HoloLens 2, they're going to stop production and support will end by 2027. And a focus on just investing in other companies that do mixed reality through software and partnership. The hardware side is just done. Every once in a while, I would read that HoloLens 2 is a really interesting enterprise product for some kind of engineers and some manufacturing use cases. And then I remember some key figures like this guy Alex Kipman, who left the company in 2022. It felt like they needed to like bring in some new visionaries, but I just don't think they ever did. And probably after watching Apple release the Vision Pro, and it seems like usually Apple can do things with hardware that no other company can do, and it sort of fell flat, and they like limited their future production, and it didn't hit their, the return rate on those Apple Vision Pros was really high. It just doesn't seem like niche hardware is the right play. And Microsoft is pretty laser focused. I mean, I think they're in it to win it in the AI race. They're probably thinking like, why should I put, $10 billion into this AR, VR hardware stuff when I can just put $110 billion into the Stargate supercluster instead of $100 billion? Okay, so NVIDIA dropped a new model. It is a autoregressive autoencoder for artistic mesh generation, but all you need to know is it makes cool 3D images like this. Check out this point cloud conditioned mesh generation process for yourself. Look at that. Just like the way we had diffusion models for AI, now we're getting real mesh generation that you can just see it build the polygons together and color them and spin them around, and it makes sense. They're real objects. Now we've seen really interesting products like Meshy, and that product is getting integrated. Oh, what's the thing that we covered on Steam 2 videos ago is now live. Oh no, October 10th. Yeah, well, the day I'm filming it, I don't know the day you watch it, but that's actually a game in the Steam store you can check out. It was called Dream World, so check that out. Let me know in the comments if it's like a fun game to play, if it's using Meshy to create really fun stuff and it works. But going back to the research, this NVIDIA breakthrough is going to make things pretty realistic very quickly. Okay, so EdgeRunner is a novel autoregressive autoencoder. And an autoencoder is just a neural network, but it works like a compression algorithm. Then an autoregressive model, meaning it makes predictions of what should be the output. And it was trained as a whole on improving the quality and efficiency of the artistic mesh creation. And of course, it's NVIDIA R&D, so they have all sorts of awesome graphics to work with and like pretty much unlimited access to computation. And while traditional 3D mesh generation often struggles with key issues like low resolution, limited face count, and generalization from different input types, like whether or not it's a single image or a point cloud that it gets as an input, EdgeRunner addresses all of these problems at the same time by using a new tokenization algorithm that compresses mesh data into a more efficient format and reduces the training complexity. So this allows it to generate highly detailed 3D meshes with up to 4,000 faces, providing better control over mesh resolution. And the other thing that it does, which is probably even more interesting to me, is the model leverages latent space for training diffusion models. So there's also this interesting diffusion model in there that can enhance its ability to generalize across various tasks. I think that's why it brought everything together so well and why it can understand from natural language so well. But extensive testing shows that EdgeRunner produces a diverse and high quality set of results, making it the new cutting edge in 3D mesh generation. So Meta and Google, I guess, back to the drawing boards until you can one-up them again. Okay, a side note, but Elon Musk, Tesla, like you have to wonder, is that really just like what people on Twitter really care about? Like the for trending thing, or this has something to do with the owner of X? I don't know. You just have to wonder. I guess the algorithm's open source, but it feels like it's either bias or just the fans are just in all over this thing. Okay, so I'm always interested in Andrew Karpathy. He does a great job explaining things. He seems pretty genuine. He has a really good vision for the future. He, like a lot of people, look up to him. And when he says that he's not fully sure why LLMs sound so similar, you know, overusing lists, delving into multifaceted issues, over offering to assist further, length responses that are about the same, etc. It makes you wonder, because he said this is not something that I had predicted at first because there's many independent companies doing many different types of fine tuning. So why do they converge in a certain way? Like because they've digested the whole internet? Is that why? Is that there's something about that they started from in their base? Or is that something about the way that you think about the latent space that holds all these tokens, no matter how the tokens are arranged, broken up, what the context windows are? So that alone is an interesting question. Now, some of the responses, though, get me even more curious about it. For example, what Rohan Paul says, LLMs tend to converge on similar answers as they scale up, even for tasks like image embedding, where synthetic data isn't an issue. And this convergence towards, quote, the right answer is seen as positive, reflecting the idea that truth is singular while errors are diverse. So like, is there one reality out there that the AI is just focusing in on, and they're all coming from different angles with different techniques, but there's only one reality they're all discovering together. Like there's only one set of physical laws. And this hypothesis is known as the Platonic representation hypothesis, which means neural networks trained with different objectives on different data, modeling at different rates. They share statistical models of reality in their representation space, even if they come at it from different angles. So maybe they're not overusing lists. That just turns out to be the way that we like our answers and the way we can digest data the quickest. It's kind of true for me. I mean, I end up with lists on lists, way more than I end up with long documents that I read for my own sake. I turn notes into lists. I mean, they're pretty useful. Over offering to assist further, that one I don't know. I mean, in real life, it does seem like there's some kind of greetings or small talk that's overused also, but assisting, I don't know. That one's a little bit hard for me to imagine. About the same length of response would probably make sense. There's something about the way the average person has a conversation, how long they talk before they feel kind of uncomfortable, like they've taken up too much time, or how quiet they are before starting a conversation. Like there's definitely norms to that. So maybe it picks up on those through reinforcement learning. But this is the full paper. It's called the Platonic representation hypothesis. Using this paper for context, explain to me why. Oh, interesting. So actually, after giving that paper to ChatGPT and asking it, why do you think they offer so much more assistance than we'd find in real life? Its response is actually kind of interesting because it's saying that you come to these things like ChatGPT for assistance. It's because of the nature of the tool that you're interacting with and the fact that the ability can handle a much wider array of tasks than a normal human would. Because I would never just go to my fiance and be like, hey, can you help me, change my tire? Because that's just not a skill set. But I might go to ChatGPT and ask, how do I change a tire? Okay, so that's actually a fascinating explanation. I guess Andrew Karpathy should have just asked ChatGPT why there's these patterns. But yeah, just have your head around the hypothesis. It kind of means that this Stargate supercluster from Microsoft, all the stuff happening at Meta, Elon Musk's huge Memphis data center, they're all going to train LLMs, and they're going to end up essentially being very similar models at the end of the day if this is true. Because as they all handle more tasks, they're going to converge in the same way of understanding how the world works. And generalization is generalization, no matter how you cut it up. It's like they're all working towards this ideal version of reality where they can handle anything you throw at them. And this is why they're often over-offering to help. But have you recently been wondering, why is it that we exist in 3 dimensions? Why not 4? Why not 2? Why not 2.5? Actually, we kind of do 3.5 if you think of time as a dimension, but we won't go there. Instead, we're going to turn to Selena Routley, who wrote, 3 is a highly specialized number of spatial dimensions. A number of accidents and coincidences in 3-dimensional space make 3-dimensional geometry confusing and intellectually challenging in ways that disappear in higher dimensional space. A major confusion is around the rotational concepts like angular momentum, angular velocity, and torque. Okay, so in summary, it's like 3 dimensions is just unique. And you can think of neural networks as like multi-dimensional, right? If you only had 3 features, I guess it would be like 3-dimensional space, but it'd be impossible to learn anything useful that way. But is there something special when you only have 3 dimensions, at least about our world? And if you think about concepts like rotation and angular momentum, they rely on an axis. There's an axis that's similar in all of these things. So is that the key to understanding why 3 dimensions is kind of weird? Because the idea of an axis that can be rotated around doesn't actually hold up in 4 dimensions or 2 dimensions, basically any other number of dimensions. And I was just like, oh, is that part of why the universe is 3? Is there something about axis? Because like we move through space and we kind of have symmetry, and when we turn, like, is that fundamentally part of this? The author goes on to discuss how the notion of planes like, X, Y, and Z being orthogonal or truly independent only happens in spaces with 4 or more dimensions. So 3 dimensions is the first dimension where you can get things orthogonal. And essentially 3D is a weird but special case in geometry with some rules that break down or transform as you move to higher dimensions. And I don't know, maybe there's just something there you can chew on in your mind when you're going to sleep tonight and be like, why 3 dimensions? What is it about this? Is this part of why reality is reality? If we're living in a simulation, is it the best place to do it? Or if this all came accidentally, or physics? Okay, last reminder, subscribe to the Patreon, support the channel. Let me show you some analytics from the last video. I just released it, and it's doing really well on views. David Shapiro actually even wrote in the comments, which was really nice of him. I better pin that, actually. That he's healthy, he's around, he'll be doing stuff. I'm sure he'll be active in his own way, and I'm excited for that. Oh my gosh, $25 super thanks. Oh, should I pin that one or Dave? Well, probably Dave because we're talking about it. But hey, so I normally would pin that, and that's a really big one. I think that's the second biggest super thanks I've ever got, so thank you. Should definitely switch to Udio for the outro song. Udio sounds so much less auto pitch correction than Suno. All right, I'll do it. I'm gonna switch. I had no intentions of doing this until I already have a subscription with the other one, so I'm going to buy this just because you recommended it, but I do want to hear how good it is. All right, this will be my first generation with Udio. I'm going to go for a pop rock style. Going to be my first lyrics. I just started watching David Shapiro's video right before I quit. I heard your name he mentioned and subscribed to your channel. Thanks, David. Oh, and you mentioned Final Fantasy VII jokes. She even played Final Fantasy on the NES. So cool. All right, this is my first Udio song. Let's hear how it is. It's just me, or I can't hear the lyrics as well, though. They sound more human, but they're not legible. Music's great, though. You can sync to that. Dang, that was that's the kind of music I could listen to while I'm working because I actually can't hear lyrics. Like my brain can't follow it. So I think it did a really poor job. I mean, I might have just not understood this tool very well. I just signed up, but it did a poor job of actually taking the lyrics that I gave it and making something that sounds like the lyrics. So I think Suno's done a much better job with it. However, it kind of sounded better. Like that sounded more like a human voice talking. It sounded more like a real song, not just like an auto-tuned kind of AI thing. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below which of the two tools you think I should keep using in the future. Because I mean, I could switch over. It was just hard to hear, I think, in this case. Hit subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.